Creating call flows. A call flow determines how the inbound call will be handled. You may want a call placed to a given dial-IQ number to be immediately distributed and answered by an available agent, or you may have a pre-recorded message that you'd like to play. It is also possible to present the caller with a menu of choices from which the caller will choose by pressing different phone keys. Click Manage Inbound Call Flows on the Administration submenu. The Manage Call Flows page will load. The first time this page loads, no call flows will appear in the list. The names of call flows appear in this column. The dial-IQ inbound number or numbers handled by this call flow will appear in this column. A link to either create or edit a call flow appears in this column. Clicking the New Flow button will load a pop-up that prompts you for a flow name. Give the call flow a descriptive name and click OK. The name must be 100 characters or less. The Add Edit Call Flow page will load. The area on the left is the call flow mapping area. Creating a call flow is done by dragging applets from the applet toolbar to the mapping area. The mapping area contains boxes where you must decide how the call is handled at that point in the call. When a new call flow is being created, the first decision that must be made is, what is the first thing that happens to a call that comes in on this number? This is the Voice Applet toolbar. The voice applets that are listed here can be dragged and dropped into the call flow mapping area to determine how a call is handled at different points in the call. Each applet has its own settings. When an applet is dragged onto the call flow mapping area, a box will appear where you must configure the settings associated with that applet, though not all applets require settings. As of the 12.1 release, there are a total of 6 voice applets that can be used to control call flow. This section will define each applet and its dependent settings. Creating a sample call flow, adding applets and removing applets will be covered in the following section. Distribution applet. Adding the distribution applet will distribute the lead at that point in the call. If distribution is the first applet added to the call flow, the lead will be distributed as soon as the call comes in. Note that this requires a distribution program of the type dial-IQ inbound. More on this new type of distribution program in a later section of this video. When you add the distribution applet to a call flow, the distribution applet settings box will appear. But in the case of the distribution applet, there are no further settings that need to be configured. The call flow ends when the lead is distributed. When the lead is distributed, a pop-up will appear on the screen of the user who receives the call, and their phone will ring. Dial applet. Adding the dial applet will dial a defined number and connect the lead to that number at that point in the call. If dial is the first applet added to the call flow, the number will be dialed as soon as the call comes in. The settings that are required for the dial applet are phone number and an additional applet that determines what happens to the call if no one answers at the number that is dialed. This number must be a US phone number, direct dial with no extension. Greeting applet. Adding the greeting applet will play a recorded greeting at that point in the call. If greeting is the first applet added to the call flow, the greeting will be heard as soon as the call comes in. The settings that are required for the greeting applet enable you to choose different types of recorded greetings or audio choices. Greeting applet audio choices. Read text like a robot. Clicking this will enable you to enter text that will be read by a computer-generated voice as a greeting. Upload an MP3 file. Clicking this will enable you to upload an MP3 that will be used as a greeting. The file must be smaller than 2 megabytes and should have a descriptive title, since it will appear in your library of greetings. Record using your phone. Clicking this will enable you to record a greeting using your phone. Just enter your number and click the Call and Record button. Phone recording quality is not ideal. Be sure to review the recording quality of this message in your library of greetings before using. Choose from your library. Clicking this will enable you to choose an existing recording from the drop-down menu to use as a greeting. Click the X at the top right of an audio choice to close it. Menu applet. Adding the menu applet will present a menu to the caller. This applet enables you to create a menu like you hear when you call the bank or an airline. The caller will hear a message and be asked to press a key on their phone to determine what happens next to the call. There are a few settings that are required in the menu applet. Menu prompt. This section works just like the greeting applet described in the previous section. Menu options. This section has 3 columns: key press, applet, and add and remove. Enter a number in the key press column and drag an applet into the associated slot in the applet column. Doing this will determine how the call will be handled when the specific key is pressed by the caller. Click the plus icon to add a menu option, and click the minus icon to remove a menu option. At this point, it becomes necessary to create separate branches in the call flow to determine how the call is handled for the remainder of the call. Enter a number here to determine how many times the menu should repeat if the caller does not make a selection. Drag an applet here to determine what happens to the call if the caller doesn't enter anything after the menu. Use this section to create a greeting that will be heard if the caller makes an invalid menu selection. Timing applet. Adding the timing applet allows you to create operating hours for call flows. The most common use for this would be something like, if our business is open, handle the call one way. If our business is closed, handle the call another way. This applet checks what time it is, and according to the setting, will move the call flow into one of two applets. Like the menu applet, this applet splits the call flow into multiple possible outcomes and requires that you create multiple branches in the call flow to handle the remainder of the call. The settings that are required for the timing applet enable you to set operating hours that determine which applet should become active next. Schedule. Clicking the plus icon associated with a day will display two fields where you can enter the start time and end time that determine the hours of operation. Enter the times in this format, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Note that the current time as understood by the server is displayed in italics above the scheduling box. This may not be your local time. If the current time on the server is different than your local time, you will have to adjust the hours in your schedule to reflect the difference between the server time zone and your time zone. Open applet. The applet that is dropped into this space will determine how the call is handled if it is received within the hours indicated in the scheduling box above. Close applet. The applet that is dropped into this space will determine how the call is handled if it is received outside the hours indicated in the scheduling box above. Hang up applet. The hang up applet ends the call. When you add the hang up applet to a call flow, the hang up applet settings box appear, but there are no further settings that need to be configured. The call flow ends with this applet.